Hello, beloved.
Welcome to the Sacred Sister podcast,
where we normalize the magic
and sacralize the mundane.
In this podcast, we open up dialogue on metaphysical subjects, self-healing tools, expanding consciousness, and deepening awareness.
To support you in co-creating a life full of healing, meaning, and magic.
I'm Britt, a self-study entrepreneur, spiritual wellness coach, and self-healing song channeler.
And I'm Hanna, an astral researcher, priestess, and inner peace and transformation coach.
And together,
we're here to serve as your Sacred Sister.
Let's dive in.
Hello and welcome to everyone listening today. It is so exciting to have you here, and Hanna and I are so excited to be recording this episode right now. Good morning, Hanna.
Good morning. It is so fun to just be here with you.
Yes.
Finally again.
So everyone knows Hanna came over to my house yesterday and we sat and recorded 2.5 hours of just the most all over the place solar return of the anniversary episode of Sacred Sister podcast. And I was editing last night and I was like, you know what, Hanna? I feel like it wants to be recorded again.
Yes. We were just so excited to see each other again. We haven't seen each other for so long. So
yeah, we hadn't recorded an episode in person together while all of season 1 was that way. Season 2, we've mostly been sitting in on the calls. So yesterday we were sitting in my office space recording, and gosh, we were just so excited, and you could really hear it in the podcast episode. It was great, but I think just making it a little bit more clear will be really beneficial for all parties involved.
Totally. And it was 3 days ago, actually. It seems like yesterday, but it was 3 days ago.
No, it's a whole time warp right now.
It's a doozy. Finally out of Mercury retrograde. We're so grateful. It was a very good time for reflection, but also very grateful to have this normal, logical, analytical, left brain way of thinking back into my life, for myself at least. I can definitely feel like, everything is naturally flowing again.
Or at least starting to come to some stillness so that it can be fully direct again.
Yes.
Exactly. So, hi and welcome everybody. This is our anniversary episode, and that means that just about a year ago, we birthed Sacred Sister podcast into this world. And wow, we just had no idea that it could or would turn into what it is today, huh, Hanna?
Oh, wow. Yeah, we just kind of started it from Sacred Sister Gathering. That was our little circle that we had here in Las Vegas, the local Sisterhood circle. And it transformed into a podcast. It wanted to be transformed. And I'm so proud of us that we made it happen. And reading all the reviews and the feedback that we've gotten from our listeners is just so beautiful to see how much it has not only transformed ourselves, but also transformed others and helped them on their spiritual journey. So we are so, so grateful.
So grateful. Wow. And we're going to be touching on so many different things today, and most notably just celebrating this anniversary episode. Hanna and I haven't recorded an episode, just us two together, since the very beginning when we recorded the most important relationship episode. And we're going to be celebrating that anniversary today. And we thought it would be really fun to, in the name of the way that we've been recording this season 2 episode, go through and tell the story of how we met, and also sharing together. Like, you know how Hanna usually does the astrology reports by herself. So we thought it would be really fun to pull up not only our chart together, but also pull up our chart overlaying on top of each other and talking about the ways that we expand one another, and also bringing up the Sacred Sister podcast birth chart. And going over all of that, seeing how it really how it really sticks out to us, and also hopefully providing some insight to anyone out there who is curious about how to look at a birth chart and really see that it can give a lot of insights to a lot of different aspects of relationships, and hearing some people put voice to those aspects.
Yeah, and it's really fun to do it about us and our relationship, because we're going to be talking about friendship in this episode. So we really want to talk about conscious friendship, sacred sisterhood. What is it? Why is it important to have one? What are the benefits? How can we attract one into our lives? How can we maintain the sacred sisterhood? And what to do if a friendship is falling apart?
Yeah. Oh my gosh, so exciting. And I think it would be very fun for us to start out by first talking about our most popular episodes from this season.
Yes. Let's
really sharing with everyone the things that we've found that you're resonating with, and just letting you know some of the topics that are really rippling through the collective consciousness. That's the way that we like to see these most popular episodes, because if we see that they're gaining a lot of traction and tons of people are going in to listen to these episodes first, we know that this is some stuff that a lot of people are dealing with and healing and getting curious about, looking at more deeply in their lives.
Yeah, so fascinating. So we took out the 3 most popular episodes from season 2. And let's start with the number 3, and we're going to go up into top 1. So number 3 is the episode 2.6, Reading the Akashic Records, with elite certified Akashic record teacher Helen Vonderheide.
Yes. Wow. What a beautiful episode this was. What was like some of your greatest takeaways from it?
Well, I bought a book right away after that episode. It's the book by Linda House, who is her teacher. And it is so transforming. And this whole episode, it just helped me so much to normalize the Akashic Records and help me to really access it in a way more efficient, quicker, and more productive way than I have before.
Beautiful. And for me, this episode was one of the first of this season that we were really diving into like the deep etheric realm, and really like talking about a lot of these vast sort of kind of like just energy fields. Talking about the energy fields for me was an edge for sure, because these are not really the concepts that I have an innate proclivity to working with. And I think it's a really fun thing to obviously press into an edge and really communicate on stuff like this, especially on a public platform like this, because it's vulnerable for me. And also I think it's really beautiful, because I think you and I really mirror each other in a lot of great ways. That I have a lot of practices that are like here in the physical realm, and leaning into those more etheric practices is, I think it's important just to communicate that everyone doesn't have to be 1,000% connected to both realms equally. And I think it's really great, because you come with this wisdom and the practices with the dream world and the Akashic record realm and the ascended masters and your spirit guides. And, you know, it's just such a present, relevant thing for you.
Yeah, and we're going to be talking about that in our astrology too, because that can actually be seen, these beautiful differences that we have that are like where we inspire each other to dive more deeper into the opposite field of our comfort zone. So
Exactly. It's perfect. I think it's so important to really get that sort of messaging out there, because I know for myself, especially when we were growing our sisterhood from the beginning, there was a part of me that felt very inept, because I didn't have the natural proclivities that you did about, you know, working with energy and working with spirit in this way. It kind of just made me feel like I should be able to do that stuff, and I should have the connection. And this is such a beautiful lens to look at that comparison game, and another way that you can really come to appreciate your beautiful bond in Sacred Sisterhood because we're all so different, and comparing the selves is just such a silly, silly game that literally doesn't have many benefits.
Yes. And we'll be touching on that more a little bit later on too. But let's move on to the number 2 episode.
Yeah, so that one was 2.3, Honor Your Bleed, Your Cycle is Sacred, with Cottrell and Leanna Pareja. Wow, we've received so many messages about this one too. Just the really groundbreaking epiphanies that it's brought to a lot of women, and just that really beautiful innate, like getting back to the natural cycles. So taking a look at ourselves on a monthly map, having the 4 inner seasons, inner spring, inner summer, inner fall, inner winter. And I hadn't really been approaching my cycle in that way, but I've been experimenting with it since having the interview with Ash and Leanna. And it's been really insightful, just learning more about myself and thinking about myself on a week-to-week basis, trying to rearrange some scheduling, really noticing in the spring and summer how my energy is really like robust and feeling sexy and fertile, and wanting to engage more with lovemaking with my partner. How's it been affecting you?
Yeah, it's been really good. I mean, I've already started feeling into my cycle before that, but at the same time, what I really love about it is that they wrote this book called The Blood Book, and they show different herbs that you can use and different rituals and routines. And I really loved also how they talk about the different hormones that are going on for each season. So I didn't know about all the scientific part of it. Mm-hmm. And also I love how they talk about how to talk to your partner about it and let them know. And it's just, it's been really, really interesting. I definitely started talking more about it with my partner, allowing him to know in what season I'm in. So he has like an idea of what is going on with me and why am I reacting the way I am. And it's so much easier to call it the different seasons. That's one that I took from it for sure, because I knew about, when I'm ovulating or when I'm bleeding, but I didn't really know about calling it the inner winter and the inner spring and inner summer. And it's just so fun. It's just so easy to relate to. So I love it. I love what they do, both of them, for the collective. It's just absolutely amazing. So thank you.
Oh, wow. They're offering women's circles online too, I think.
Yes, so, and get facilitations, like be facilitator of like allowing other people to learn about their blood cycles. Mm-hmm.
So beautiful. And just so everyone knows, we're going to put the episode details and also the contact information inside of the episode description if you do want to connect with any of these people further. So shall we move to the number 1 spot?
Yes. All right. So the number 1 episode, the most popular episode of Sacred Sister podcast is Sexual Liberation with Corinne Loperfido.
Yes. So Corinne was our first guest on the podcast, and this is such a fascinating topic. I mean, as soon as we conceptualized the idea of having guests on the podcast, I immediately thought about Corinne because I really wanted to invite someone on that had such a different way of presenting themselves in the world, and such a liberated human in a topic that I myself have been really assessing and looking at traumas and healing in a lot of ways. And for me, looking at those people that are so outside of my comfort zone and they naturally are just residing there, it makes me like a part of me. It starts crawling out and reaching out to them. Just like, how are you this way, sister? Can you please share anything with me that will help me be able to step into this place in myself? Because I know that, it's a contraction within myself. So to be able to see myself in a more expansive way would probably change my life. And, this is the way that universe starts working those teachers into your life. And Corinne was absolutely one of those for me.
Yeah, so beautiful. I love what she is doing. She has this pussy powerhouse. She goes out and really allows other people to connect with their sexuality and be unapologetically you. And I love that about her. She doesn't give a fuck about anybody, whatever they would think about her. She doesn't care. And it's just so liberating. It's such a liberating feeling. And especially with like sexual liberation, where we as women are taught to be like that or like that. If we wear too much, then we are, closed off. If we wear too little, then we are sluts. Just like feeling into all these old stories and paradigms and programming and just allowing them to fall away and liberate ourselves. Oh.
Yeah, isn't that so beautiful? It's like this really clear message that's been cultivated for women over the last, centuries that says, damned if you do, damned if you don't. Like, there's never going to be a way to please everyone. And we are so seeing that clear as day now. And I feel like Corinne's energy really reminds me of Billie Eilish in some ways, but also it's just that really strong Aquarius energy that just really is unapologetic and says like, yeah, well, maybe you've been doing it this way for a long time, but A, is it working? B, does it feel good? C, like, do you really feel like you're living your best life? Because ultimately it's like, what are we doing here? And I love seeing these people that come in with this completely just like lack of the societal programming that we've had to feel shame about our body, to feel shame about wanting to have sex because it feels good. And, just really reassessing that and opening up that dialogue. And it's obviously really reaching the ears of the people that are listening to it on this podcast, at least. And you know what I heard too? I just want to share this as well because it's a pretty wild thing. I know that there are people that were like avid listeners of the podcast, and then they heard Corinne's episode and they don't listen to the podcast anymore.
Oh no! Where did you hear that?
I'm not going to share, but it's in my personal circle, and yeah, it's a really fascinating thing. I think it just goes to show those paradigms, just those paradigms and how edgy it can be. Like, I'm not used to talking about sex and sexuality or self-pleasure or things like that. I'm just starting to open up this dialogue. And it's really fascinating to see how uncomfortable it's been for me. And not even a conscious thing that it's actually uncomfortable, but just because I think as a woman, I don't find myself in social situations where this is like a topic that we're discussing. And I think that needs to change.
Yes. Oh my gosh. And I feel like, we definitely started out this whole season with a bam. Corinne Loperfido as the number one guest. But it literally shows, this is the change that we want to bring into the world. This is how we want to help other people transform. And, it's part of us as Sacred Sister to also trigger, and we're going to be talking about that in the Conscious Sisterhood, how important it is to have the beautiful blessings, but also to get those little triggers, because those are the ones for us to look at and be like, why is this triggering me? Why is this coming up? What is that inside of me that is being or trying to be awakened inside of me that I'm trying to hold down? So fascinating. All right. Thank you, everybody. Thank you, all of our guests of season 2. Thank you, all of our listeners, for providing us with such beautiful feedback and reviews and ratings, and for just sitting with us and allowing ourselves to just spend this time together. Thank you.
Yes, thank you so much. Okay, let's hop on to our synastry chart, huh?
Yes, let's do the astrology.
Yes. Can you give our listeners a little insight as to the difference between a synastry and a composite chart? And just give a little intro.
Yeah, so our natal chart in astrology is the time, is basically a snapshot of the sky at the time of our birth. And with the synastry chart, we take my birth chart and Brittany's birth chart, and we put them both together on top of each other so that we see how are the planets influencing each other, how are the houses aligning to each other. And basically what that shows on a metaphysical level is how we as sisters influence each other. How do we grow? How do we trigger each other? How do we give blessings to each other? So it's a really fascinating thing to do. And whenever I do relationship readings, I do the synastry chart and then the composite chart. The composite chart is both of our energies together, mixed together in the midpoints of all our planets, which is basically the energy that our friendship provides as itself, which is almost like a separate being. And this is how we can see how we are different with other people. Depending on with who we are connecting with, we actually show different parts of our personality in that friendship or partnership.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and would you say that these can be some of the trailheads to when you meet someone and you feel like you just have known them before and something about it feels so harmonious? Or in like the workplace or with like some step sibling or just someone that you don't, there's just something about them that just really, really bugs you. Can you usually track it back to difficult or harmonious aspects of the charts?
Yes, and it is so helpful in healing relationships.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I've done readings for moms that had like a really hard relationship with their child, or for people that have had to heal their relationship to their father, and we can do these kind of synastry and composite chart readings because we can see what is the purpose of the whole, why were you even together? Why did you even meet in this lifetime? What can you learn from each other, and how can you make the best out of this relationship? It's not going to tell you, are you meant to stay together forever?
Mm-hmm.
This is not something that astrology can do because we still have free will. So it always depends on us. What do we do with these energies? Nothing is set in stone and said like, okay, this is exactly how this relationship is going to turn out. Because it basically just shows you these are the energetic archetypes that are presented. These are the opportunities. These are the challenges. But what we do with them is up to us.
Mm-hmm.
So this is where the fun comes in too, because it's still our free will of like, how do we react in these situations?
Yeah, as you're saying all that, I'm like, wow, what a beautiful thing. It's again, that really beautiful blessing that astrology or some self-knowledge systems, human design, where we can actually put these charts that are impersonally based, just based on our birth information, time, date, location of the birth, place it outside of yourself. And especially in those non-harmonious relationships that we feel like that person just bugs us to no end and they must be here to make our lives miserable or something, you're able to look at this system that's completely outside of yourself and say, oh, wow, this actually reflects something that I feel on a very, very deep level. And maybe, just maybe, I'm able to lean into a different idea, which is that this person is placed on my path for a specific purpose and that they can actually, like, what do we know about triggers? Just behind the door of a trigger lies like the most beautiful, expansive transformation. And that's how we're able to look at these relationships and instead look at a person from a different perspective that says, oh my gosh, you're here to teach me something really, really amazing. And I'm grateful for your trigger.
Yes. This is why astrology is so helpful for unconditional love and forgiveness. For me, it has been so helpful to approach people from that direction, seeing, oh, this is where they're coming from. It makes so much sense now,
Yeah. I know you're a life beyond the veil coach, and I serve as a personal transformation coach. And wouldn't you say that so much of transmuting a struggle is by being able to find that perspective that looks at it from a space of empowerment and liberation, more so because we always have the choice, more so than looking at it as something that's like a detriment to our lives that we have no control over, that we're totally victim to. It's always just ability to shift that perspective. And ultimately, we all have that ability if we're willing.
Yes. And we actually touch on that in the first episode of the second season, 2.1, Self, the most important relationship. That's when we touch on these different kinds of relationship that we can have with ourselves as a victim, as a controller, or a co-creator of our life, and how to really connect with those different roles. So yeah, we want to keep this relatively short because the first time that we did this, the first time around, we probably talked about this like for 45 minutes because it's just so much fun to look at charts and we can go so deep. So we want to
chop it
very short. And I just want to say too, obviously there's so much more to the chart than what we're going to be talking about, but we keep it very short and really just focus on the things that have stood out to us and keep it simple and sweet. So
sweet and simple.
Sweet and simple. So for the synastry chart, I'd like to just look at one specific aspect that has been just standing out so big for me personally in our relationship that explains pretty much almost everything that is going on in our friendship, which I just so love. Mm-hmm. And it is Brittany's Taurus Gemini cusp sun and her Gemini Mercury right on top of my Gemini Jupiter and conjunct my IC. So
keywords for all those things.
Keywords. So Brittany's Sun and Mercury. The Sun is the way that you shine your light, like you express yourself. Mercury is the planet of communication, the way you communicate. Jupiter, which is on my side, Jupiter is the planet of the teacher and the exploration. So more the spiritual expansion part. And I see what I was talking about. The IC is our innermost self. So Brittany, with her Sun and Mercury, with her way of how she expresses herself and the way she communicates, is activating my innermost self and is helping me to communicate from a place of vulnerability. And this has been so big for me because it was really hard for me for a while to express my emotions. I'm a moon in Scorpio. My emotions go deep. And sometimes they go so deep under the surface that I'm not even really aware where they are right now. And my sun is in Leo, which loves to focus on the light and the positive and everything. So I did have the tendency in my life to really focus on love and light only and positive vibes only and really just see the good in every single situation, which is, can be very amazing, very beneficial. And I'm still using that gift. But at the same time, what I've done is I've ignored my own inner emotions of how I felt, how I truly felt. And this is actually what brought me into the dark night of the soul around 7-8 years ago. Let me just think, 2011, 9 years ago. Wow. Which was really hard time for me because I was in an emotionally abusive relationship. I was in a job where I was undervalued. I was living a life where I wasn't able to shine fully. I wasn't able to express myself fully. I felt like I had to walk on eggshells. But I still, during that whole time, I was just focusing on the good. And just like, hey, I just got to be grateful. There are other people that are starving. I have a roof over my head. I just got to be grateful for what I have. And I ignored my inner feelings that were like, you got to get out of the situation. You got to be true to yourself. Speak your truth. Speak your feelings. Speak how you truly speak who you are. And then interestingly enough, I got sick, obviously in the throat chakra. My whole throat was swelling up so that I couldn't even eat. I just had fluids. And it was really happening for like 3 months straight, and no antibiotics, nothing helped until I actually made the choice to say, okay, I'm going to transform my life. So, and that's when I, broke up from that relationship, quit the job, and literally went back into who am I and how do I really feel? So long story short, this is really what Brittany is activating in me and helping me to really, really access is that vulnerable communication within myself and being able to allow myself to truly express who I am from the deepest self.
Such a beautiful, beautiful thing. Thank you so much. And I feel like, in so many ways, these aspects, we're able to look at them from a yes and perspective that says like, yes, that's how how my persona has been seen by you and activated you and helped you expand, and you bring this. So then it goes the other way too, right? So then you bring this really expansive trait to my life where I'm able to just see you thrive and see you grow and see you making these big strides forward. When I think of this, I also think of numerology because you're 1 year ahead of me. So numerologically, you are a personal year ahead of me at all times. And 2 years. Thank you. Mm-hmm. So, just being able to see you making those strides in your own time. And for me, being able to witness what's possible, all those Gemini activations inside of my chart, I feel like they lend this ability for me to look outside of myself and see the way that other people are bringing change to their life and see what's possible for other people. And on a very universal level, I know that if something's possible for someone else, it's possible for me too. So being able to really implement those universal laws and just seeing the things that are possible for other people out there, it's very, very easy for me to draw those into my reality and just accept them as truth. And then I begin my own experimentation with all of it and, come to see what it looks like in my unique life on my unique path. But that's something that I really love about my own Gemini traits. But yes, your strides and your the ways that you step forward into that expansive Jupiter energy is really helpful for me too. And like this, I feel like especially in the realm of what we were talking about earlier, which is like the astral realm, the ties that you make to the dream world and working with the spirit guides and your ascended masters. Like, these are things that I really love intaking from you. I do my own experimentation, but my connections aren't as naturally occurring as yours are. And again, that's something that I've made really deep peace with. Like, for me, especially after my mom passed away last year, like, I'm not as concerned with connecting with ascended masters and different people in my soul family and my spirit guide family because my mom is showing herself so plainly and so apparently to me. And right now that's like all I want and all I need. And I have that connection, which is, it's the unique way that facet is shining in my life. Does that make sense?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And there's no need to feel like you have to have a certain connection with certain ascended masters. If it doesn't come up naturally, it's not meant to, and that's okay. But I also find it so fun because kind of the reason why our friendship developed on a deeper level, I feel like, is because you started coming to my classes. And I started having classes in Las Vegas. 2016, I had my workshops, the ones that you came to, and those were about astrology and numerology. And that was for you like the first time, right? Being introduced to these concepts.
Oh yeah, those were my first initiations to the love affair that I now have with astrology, and I've recommended, to dozens of people who have been like, "How do I learn more about astrology?" I'm like, well, first off, it depends on the way that you learn best. If you find that you learn best in a teacher type, personal, in-person setting, go look in your local area and see if the metaphysical shops or anywhere has a foundational astrology course. And even for anyone listening now, if you want to know more, if you hear us talking about the charts and you're like, wow, I'd love more insight on that, I would 1,000% recommend some sort of foundational course that offers at least 9 or 10 hours. That's how many hours you offered for your course. And it's just barely scratching the surface.
Yeah. I was literally just doing elemental astrology and elemental numerology, and but also I feel like what I sometimes get is people like, I don't do really well with other people around me in the physical realm, or people maybe don't have time for that. And that's where it's so fun to also have online offerings, and there are online workshops. And also, if you want to check out my website, I have these archetype playbooks that I uploaded there for free for you to download.
Yeah. Can you share about those? Because it's a new offering for you, huh?
Yes, it's a new offering. It's on my new website, hannachristiansen.com. And you can click onto your archetype, and which is your zodiac sign, your sun sign, your moon sign, if you know that, and your rising sign. So those are like the three main signs that kind of helps you to become aware of your sacred trinity. And looking at those three archetypes and downloading that archetype playbook helps you with like little prompts that can allow you to really feel deeper into those energies and shine as the star that you are born to be.
Oh, thank you so much. I can't wait to go and check those out on my own. I haven't gone to see what the archetype playbook looks like yet, so I'm super excited too.
I'm excited for you. Yay. All right, let's look into our composite chart.
Yes. Let's do it. And again, oh my gosh. So like the biggest thing that pops up here is this God's finger.
Yes, we have a big God's finger in our chart. But actually, before we want to touch on that, I would like to just really simply talk about our sacred trinity that I was just talking about with the archetype playbooks, which is our sun together, our moon together, and our rising sign together. Because the sun shows how we express ourselves outwardly. The moon is what our innermost self is. What do we feel comfortable with? What do we reflect on? And the rising sign is how we show up in the world.
Mm-hmm.
So, our sun together, and I love it so much because it's just so us. It's just so perfect. Our sun together is in Cancer, in the 3rd house. Cancer is the nurturer, the nourisher, protector. The 3rd house is the house of communication. So I feel like both of us shine together as vulnerable communicators.
Mm-hmm.
That's what we do.
No, and then we have moon in Sagittarius, which is fun because my moon is in Sagittarius too, and yours is like Scorpio Sag cusp.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, beautiful. Can you speak on that a little bit?
So our moon together is in Sagittarius in the 7th house, and Sagittarius is that expansion, the teacher, the explorer, and all about like, what is my truth? What are my beliefs? And the 7th house is the house of relationships, of others, harmony, and uniting. So I feel like both of us feel in our heart to unite opposite beliefs, bring people together from opposite beliefs, like seeing things from different perspectives and finding the truth core within, and also bringing spiritual expansion to others.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, beautiful. And then our rising sign together is an Aries. I don't know that I actually know any Aries rising just as an individual. So this is actually something that I've never really thought about as far as our chart goes together.
It's really fun. I have Aries rising with my husband too. Well, I should say Pisces. We are Pisces Aries cusp, and we're actually Aries Taurus cusp. So that's also called the cusp of power, because Aries is the warrior, and Taurus is the artisan, the cultivator, gardener. So Taurus is really strong and steadfast, and Aries is really confident and courageous. So this is where both that combination is the cusp of power, because we refuse to be held down. We do our thing, we commit to something, and we stride along the way. And this is how we show up in the world.
With that fiery, steadfast passion.
Yes.
Beautiful. So let's talk about the God's finger.
Yeah. What do you want to touch on that?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like that Gemini energy, obviously, to me is so near and dear to my heart, because as an individual, I have Sun, Mercury, Venus, Jupiter in Gemini. So anytime I see a Gemini placement with somebody else, I'm like, oh, where are we the communicator? Where does our intellect naturally go towards? And for us, seeing Jupiter in Gemini, for me, just speaks to exactly what this podcast is all about, which is opening that communication toward the step of expansion, toward inviting those new ideas in, because we know that sharing by communication is where change comes from.
Yes. And it's so fun. This whole God's finger is our life. It's like so amazing. So a God's finger shows like a special mission that we have. It usually shows something that we first need to adjust around a little bit, but when we find our way to connect with it, it's really, really powerful and can be very influential for ourselves and for others. And so the God's finger that we have consists of Neptune, Pluto, and Jupiter being the pivotal point. And this is what you were just talking about, Jupiter in Gemini being that pivotal point, the point that is the most important, that is being influenced by Neptune, which is the planet of the subtle realm, the dream world, unconditional love, forgiveness, the love and light. And then Pluto, on the other hand, which is the planet of transformation, rebirth, shadow work, facing fears, all the darkness, right? So we're literally bringing the light and the darkness together, communicate about it in the second house, which is bringing it into the mundane. So literally bringing that magic, that inner spiritual expansion, and making it accessible and relatable for others.
Beautiful. I love how you just worded that. And so plain to see. It's like, I love thinking about the God's finger in terms of those two axis points as well. And like when you are on your path, when you are showing up in the ways that are natural for you, in the ways that you know that you're being called towards. So when we're accessing the loving states inside of ourselves and giving ourselves this spiritual connection that our spirit naturally desires to be a part of, we are also turned on to those shadow aspects of ourselves. So when we're showing up to the Neptune placement and the Pluto placement, the natural birth child of those two things together is going to be the expansion.
Yeah.
It's so beautiful. I love it so much. Astrology is the best.
And so let's hop on to the Sacred Sister podcast birth chart, which is really fun because you can make birth charts with pretty much anything that you give birth to. So that's not just necessarily a human, but also any project that you do, a marriage, business, podcasts, whatever it is, it has a birth chart. So I have one about my own business, and it's so helpful to kind of know, like, what am I meant to focus on right now? How can I be in sync with universal time? How can I stay in the flow? And how am I not trying to force doors open that are just not meant to be opened right now? And how can I literally open through the portals that are open for me? It makes life so much easier on a personal level, but also on a business level.
Yes. And you know what? I have a question for you, because I was just thinking, I haven't ever brought up mine and Curtis's marriage chart necessarily. And my question is, would it be the marriage certificate, the marriage license, or the time that you actually had the wedding?
So this is kind of personal, right? So this is going to depend on when you feel like you made that conscious choice where you say, this is where our marriage was birthed. If it was something very sacred when you signed it, then that's the thing. If it was something very sacred when you said yes to each other, then that's the thing. If it was very sacred when you committed to it in the beginning, maybe there was something where you say, yes, we're going to do this together, then that's the birth time. Yeah.
Okay.
So it depends on when you say, oh, wow, this is where we said, yes, we're going to do it. This is who we are. This is where this literally came to life. For us, it was on the Lionsgate opening. I had no idea that was the Lionsgate opening. On August 8th at 8:08 p.m., that's when we got married.
Oh, and did you just, how did you not know that?
Well, it was literally before my spiritual expansion. I just started on my path and I had no idea about numerology. I had no idea about anything like Lionsgate opening, like any like portals in that, because that has to do with the stars and the constellations. I had no idea about any of that stuff. So I just thought it just ended up working out that way. And I was like, oh yeah, let's get married on August 8th. And then I also think back and like look back and be like, I don't know many weddings where people really got married on sunset and then having their wedding photos in the dark at night. But I love it so much. I feel like it is so beautiful for the way that our marriage is, because it goes really, really deep, and it really helped me connect a lot with that feminine and with that ever subtle realm of life. So it was literally my initiation into my spiritual journey.
So beautiful. Thank you for sharing that. So let's talk about the Sacred Sister podcast chart.
Yes, let's do it.
Okay, so we are, for Sacred Sister podcast, Sun in Pisces. We are Taurus rising and Virgo moon.
Mm-hmm. So I love how the Sun in Pisces is like right on the cusp of rebirth, right between Pisces and Aries, since we started Sacred Sister podcast on spring equinox, but we actually started it right before the sun went into Aries. So we still have that beautiful Pisces energies in our chart. And I don't think we necessarily made that on purpose, that we were still in Pisces, because I think that we were just like, we're just going to do on spring equinox, but it just kind of happened to be like right before the sun went into Aries. It's just beautiful. This cusp of rebirth, obviously, again, we have that whole theme of rebirth in our for Sacred Sister. And then Pisces is the dreamer and the mystic looking into the subtle realms of life. And then Aries is the warrior and really owning it and having the confidence to step forward into new realms out of the comfort zone and pioneering into new fields.
And also bringing it to the physical world, right? Bringing those subconscious aspects of life and walking around the world with that as an outlook, as a shining.
Yes, I love that. And it's also conjunct our Chiron in Aries. So that's literally the Sacred Sister podcast is here to shine light onto our wounds as a collective.
Absolutely. And I really love that we have Mercury in retrograde as an aspect of the Sacred Sister podcast chart, because I feel like what this podcast lends itself to is us being able to open up dialogue on those more subtle realms. And just as someone who has Mercury in retrograde in my own birth chart, it is obviously something like just the way that I communicate, I think has always been naturally just a little more internal, a little more subtle, a little more about like the ins and outs of what's actually going on inside. And for what's circulating in the collective right now, I think it's so helpful to have sisters like us who are opening this dialogue and saying like, hey, what's happening inside of you is not coincidence. It has a purpose. We are meant to be speaking about stuff like this, and we are just learning how to develop a language around our inner landscape.
Yes. I also love how it was on a full moon in Virgo when we created Sacred Sister podcast. So we have that opposition between the sun and the moon. And it's this beautiful opposition of like the light is shining onto our innermost soul. And the soul of Sacred Sister podcast is in Virgo in the 5th house. And it's really here to serve. And this is why we always say we serve as your sacred sister, because it's really there to serve you, to help you become more who you are. 5th house is all about the self, the expression of the self. We are here to help you step into the light, being the star that you are born to be. Allow yourself to step into that leadership and shine your light
Mm-hmm.
the world.
And as one more aspect, I think before we move on, I just love that our North Node is in Cancer and it's conjunct the IC and in the 3rd house. For me, what that speaks to is just this Sacred Sister podcast, this entity, as it were, being so rooted in sensitivity and so rooted in having that intellectual foundation, or far-reaching, like we're moving toward being able to approach life in a more sensitive way, and just being able to like acknowledge the sensitivities in life and seeing that as like our baseline foundational nature.
Yes, that vulnerable communication and allowing ourselves to doubt old belief systems, because our self node is in the house of dogmatism, right? An old belief system. So we're really kind of like the purpose of Sacred Sister podcast is to see the other side of these programming, of the old belief systems, that the old structures that we have that no longer are serving us, that are slowly falling apart, that with Pluto being conjunct, like we notice with Pluto being in Capricorn in our reality, all these old systems and structures, the shadow parts of them are coming to the light now, and people realize they're not working anymore. Mm-hmm. It's not helping us as a collective anymore. It's not helping the people. And I feel like as Sacred Sister podcast, we're here to have that vulnerable communication about that transformation and allow these structures to gently fall apart and create a new way of believing, a new truth for people, so that they can feel really grounded and safe and have that security of allowing themselves to be who they are.
Mm-hmm. Beautifully spoken, sister. Thank you.
Thank you. Oh my gosh, that was so fun.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think just as someone who loves intaking the stories of other people, just being able to look at 3 different facets of birth charts for just between you and I is just so fascinating. And I think it really speaks to the way that astrology plainly makes it clear that each and every one of us has all the archetypes within us, and that in every single relationship that we have, we are curating different energies. We are giving rise to different aspects between ourselves and the other person. And it just gives us this really unbiased opinion of what's going on and what's circulating in our relationships, so that we can then move forward in a way that says, once again, how can I get curious in this? What are we here to teach each other? Because I don't think that, especially for people that come in, they don't maybe have like the environment or the parents or the friends or the family that are interested in these metaphysical practices or concepts, we're able to still, not see ourselves as a victim of our circumstance and say like, okay, there's got to be some healthful answer for me out there that says, that this is all somewhat happening for a reason, for my ultimate benefit, if I'm willing to lean in and be a student in my own life.
Mm-hmm. Beautiful, yes. So shall we move into our little meditation before we then hop into the sacred sisterhood conscious friendship topic?
Yes, sounds good. So wherever it is that you are finding yourself right now, I invite you to come to a comfortable seat. And if you are operating a vehicle, if you're driving around someplace, if you have little babes around you, just find yourself in a space that you're able to breathe. Not necessary that you have to sink deeply into this meditation or close the eyes, but just allow yourself to sink into a space of presence for these next few minutes.
Oh, sacred sister, a kindred flame, may we light one another. From the ashes rise, oh, we rise, oh, again.
And I invite all of us to exhale whatever it is that we have inside outward. Intaking, filling the breaths, filling the lungs and breasts. Exhaling, release it out. Twice more big, deep breaths and gulping fresh, new prana-filled energy into our lungs. And let it go. Biggest breath you've taken all day. Envision yourself in a field. A big, wide, open field with grass. Seeing what color the grass is, whether you feel that you're more in a hay field or a great plain, a meadow with green grass. Walking gently, feeling your vibrancy, your independence, your strength, your freedom, your unique spirit. With every step that you take, such an easeful, relaxed, and calming feeling. With every breath in, feeling that refreshing air, just a little crisp, and feeling the sun cascading onto your skin. Such a held feeling we have here. And soon it dawns on us that we would love to be experiencing this richness, this juicy vibrancy with another. And we realize that we are blissfully with ourselves, blissfully alone. And we decide that we are to call out and see who it is that will come and join us in this space. Whatever that call sounds like to you, I invite you to contemplate that in these next few breaths, calling out to whoever it is that will join you in this space. And from a distance, you start to see the shadow of a distant goddess. Off in the distance, beginning to, with each step, come nearer and nearer and nearer. And she too is illuminated. She too radiates an aura that is brilliant, divine, free, strong, unique, special, and independent. And she's coming nearer now. And while you've never seen this person before, she feels so familiar. And you begin to intake one another and the various subtleties that you see, circling around and around each other, gazing one another up and down. So familiar and yet so foreign. And soon you both come to stillness, closing the eyes and intaking fresh breath, this time in a new way, together. And from this space, with every inhale, you are radiating your brilliance outward. And you start to see off in the distance now thousands and thousands of shadows radiating light outward. You realize that more and more and more divine sisters are coming to join you in this space. More and more unique individuals that are joining you on your path. And they're stepping more and more closely toward you and your newfound friend with brilliant smiles, just illuminating their vibrancy that much more. Everyone is so excited to be back in this place. So familiar and also so foreign. And they all come around and make a big circle around each other. And each one is looking around the circle, intaking the magnitude of the power that has now joined in this field. The big transformation that is accompanying so much vibrant, high energy. You feel as if you are all hearts beating as one. So familiar and so foreign. Inhaling, drawing in light from the heavens. Exhaling, rooting deeply into the earth. Twice more, inhaling deeply from the heavens. Exhaling, rooting deep into the earth. Both hands coming together, left meeting right at the heart center. Bowing to each and every person who has joined in the circle. Gratitude. So familiar and yet so foreign. What an honor it is to be joined by such powerful reflections of ourselves. And blessed be.
Blessed be. Thank you.
Thank you.
So fun, attracting our soul tribe. When I was there, I felt Mary Magdalene and Mother Mary being on my side, and just feeling this deep, deep sense of family and gratitude. And then I saw a few more coming from the horizon. I didn't really see them yet, but it felt so good to notice how more of that soul family is making themselves known to me and showing themselves into my life, and just trusting in the process that they will come up whenever the time is ripe for it.
Yes, beautiful. Exactly. And it's so funny. Thank you so much for mentioning more of what like the visuals were that showed up for you. Again, we come back to this comparison loop that's definitely come up for me. I love that Mother Mary and Mary Magdalene show up so, quickly to aid at your side as your like kindred sisters. The little friends that came to me were these like, almost like cartoony dollish figures with like great big eyes and like wearing these like blue peasant sort of cotton dresses in this green meadow. And I think it just speaks so beautifully to the ways that we visualize things and the things that are naturally like where our mind goes to. Mm-hmm. The way that we like to intake information and the way that our imagination or connection in that way works. When I connect with people, when I have friends or I'm cultivating a new relationship, I guess I've never really noticed that I think I connect with their inner child too.
Yeah.
And inner children just have this sort of illustrated, sort of cartoony, young look to them. And anyone that knows me knows that I'm such a little derpy merp, like little like kid at heart, that I just love that I always see these little cartoon figures, and a lot of my downloads happen in cartoon figures. A lot of the people that kind of come and give me these big downloads, it's like always very illustrated.
So cute. I also love the cartoony figure, how you draw your mom. It is the cutest thing.
I've always drawn like my people figures the same since I was a little girl. And even my grandma still has a lot of my little drawings that I used to draw for her. We lived 2 doors down from her, and I would always leave little notes for her on her porch to find. And some of those are still on her fridge. And I always make the little mouths like look like an H. Like it's just like these 2 little dimples, like a little side smile. And the eyes are always taking up at least 2/3 of the face. They're just massive circles. I feel like that speaks so beautifully to my Gemini self that's so wide-eyed and curious too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I feel like also your moon in the house of Leo, the Leo, the inner child, and allowing yourself to play.
Yes.
All right. So I love this too, because we, talk about these differences and allowing ourselves to honor them in each other and rooting for each other and cheerleading. So what is sacred sisterhood, if you want to like touch on that, and like what is conscious friendship to you?
Yeah, thank you for asking that. I definitely come from a past with moving schools so much and never really being able to build strong friendships, and also with a strong self-identity as well. So only in my 20s have I really been able to, I have one girlfriend that I still hang out with and talk to, that I always considered my quote unquote best friend. But those sorts of strong friendships were few and far between, because anytime I would find myself getting close, what I thought was really close to someone, they would like publicly humiliate me, and a lot of times like just bully me really severely. So I definitely had a wound around cultivating a really deep friendship that I felt like I could trust on a really, on a really personal level. And just finding that, especially in you, like I have faith in saying that you are the most, deep and conscious sort of sisterhood that I've cultivated in my life. It's so wonderful to have you as a mirror in so many different aspects of our relationship. Like we're great sounding boards for one another, and we're able to see each other thriving, striding on our path, and we're always like just each other's cheerleaders. Mm-hmm. It's so nice to go through the light and to go through the shadow, to see whenever we're triggering each other. And to really like show up to more of that vulnerable dialogue whenever we are sort of asserting boundaries or approaching triggers or stuff like that. Like, how do you feel about all the activations that we have for each other?
Yes, I 100% agree with you. I come from a similar past in the sense that I definitely had troubles making friends. I also have one best friend that I'm still in contact with from elementary school, funny enough.
Mm-hmm.
But it was really hard for me to make friends in school, and I was also an outsider, and I spent a lot of times in recess. I spent in the bathroom or in the library because I didn't have to see the other people and have to feel that rejection or the bullying. And so it was really hard for me. And when I grew up into teenager years, and where I started noticing that guys and boys were attractive to me, I started realizing, oh wow, so I can actually have those people start listening to me and like be my friends. And I think that kind of started the way that I realized that I can make friends easier with guys than with girls. And I had this like kind of like competitive mindset too with girls. And I always felt like they were judging me or they were trying to take advantage of me. And yeah, so for a long time, I didn't have like a really deep cultivated friendships besides the one that I had with my elementary school friend and then one friend from high school. And then, I had a lot of friends that were there for good times, but it wasn't like a sacred sisterhood. And this is what I want to touch on, because like the sacred sisterhood, I feel like, is when you allow yourself to expand on a spiritual level as well. When you really, really go deep and talk about the shadows, talk about the darkness that's going on inside all of us. We all have our human fears. We all have our shortcomings. We all have our troubles with this human experience. But then also see each other in the light of our highest potential. Like when I think of you, like I see your higher self and like where you are in your future, and just like seeing you thrive so much, and noticing and witnessing the way that you've grown just since we've met is just so beautiful and inspiring, and it's just such a pleasure and such a treat to be your sacred sister.
Thank you, sister. This is such vulnerable dialogue that even just hearing you sort of give me these accolades and this beautiful reflection of how it is that you perceive me. It's so vulnerable. I'm sure once again the tie toward both of us comes up, so it's hard for me to sort of sit and intake it and be like, wow, she really sees me in this really cool light. And then also for you, it's giving you this opportunity to step into that vulnerable communication that says like, just letting your heart speak and really letting your heart convey a message that is your deepest truth. It's so beautiful. And I think that this is the place where sacred sistership really offers this different dynamic on a different level, because it is not so closely associated with a lot of the things that we were taught to associate friendship with, which is like the drama, the comparison, the jealousy, the things that in our society we've kind of deemed as normal, or that it's like pretty normalized. Like we are looking out for one another's best interest, and we're always here for one another if we do have some struggles and have shadows or have triggers that have to do with one another. Like I feel like this is such a defining moment for our friendship, and I would love to kind of go back to it. But the first time that you kind of asserted a boundary and how we dealt with it, because I think it can be really valuable for anyone listening to this who wants to like kind of cultivate a deeper relationship with their own friends.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Can you kind of share the story? I'd love to hear your perspective.
Yeah. So that was the time when we started to become deeper connected. And actually, it was because you asked me to download the WhatsApp, where we started to leave each other voice messages, which I have to say is so healing. It was so healing for me, and it's still, because it was so weird for me at first to leave these little voice messages and like talk into my phone by myself. And I've done these before with like just for myself to just leave my thoughts and save them for later. I have, oh my gosh, thousands of little audio messages, but I've never shared them with anyone else. And so I think it was also like my moon in Scorpio, like definitely, feeling very comfortable in my private, mysterious realm, and sharing that with the other was an edge for me, for sure. And you were so comfortable in just sharing. So you would leave me like 10, 15, 20, 25-minute messages and back on back, and didn't ask me questions of like, oh, so what's up with you? How are you feeling? What's going on with you? And I took it as kind of like a reminder of my past relationships and friendships that I've had, where these girls were trying to, just like unload all their stuff on me. And then I had to just give them advice or help them out or fix it. Or like I had the feeling of like, okay, they want now something from me, but they're not actually giving me the space to also speak because they're not asking me questions, so I didn't feel like I can also just talk about it. So I was like, all right, I have to set a boundary here because I just literally don't have the space to hold all of this, and also have the time to like help you out in the situation. And so that's when I made the boundary and said, I don't even know what I said. Honestly, I don't even remember. I just remember I made a boundary.
I'll tell you. Okay, so Hanna WhatsApps me. By the way, if anyone out there is feeling like, oh my gosh, yes, I would love to open deeper connection with my sister, whoever I'm looking to develop a deeper relationship with, and you don't necessarily want to find yourselves on the telephone all the time, WhatsApp is such a nice option, and so is Marco Polo. So Marco Polo is like a video messaging app, and WhatsApp can be video too, but mostly audio. So it's like we're in constant communication with each other throughout the day, but we're not necessarily on the phone, like speaking to each other. So we're able to, like I was saying earlier, be these sounding boards where we're kind of speaking out loud, and we're sometimes like really integrating what's going on with ourselves by speaking it out loud as well. So, what I was going to say about you is that you sent me this dead serious voice message, and you were like, I just want to let you know that I am having to assert a boundary here at the beginning. And I got so serious, and I was like, oh no, like, what did I do? Because Hanna's scary when she's serious. She can just get so, it's that Scorpio moon, you're just so intense. And I'm like, oh no. But she was like, I feel like in my past friendships I've had, people just kind of taking advantage of me, and I need to give advice, and I need to fix things, and I need to be there for you so much. And listening to her stuff, I was like, oh my gosh, I need to sit with this a little while. Because inside of myself, immediately I was like, that's not what I'm trying to do though. Like, why does she feel like she needs to fix this stuff or give me advice or whatever? Like, I'm literally just sharing with her what's going on. So these are the places where those reflections come up, where it's like, she has this whole story about what must be going on. And it's because of her past and her human experiences that she's had that's led her to develop this belief that when people are sharing a lot of things and not asking her to reciprocate the communication, she feels like she needs to, give advice or help them work the thing out. And maybe in your past friendships, you did have to do that. Maybe that is what they were seeking from you. But then this is the place where I step in and I say, no, this is a new friendship. And because that was your past story, it doesn't mean that's what's going on right now. And I just want to let you know, I'm not looking for insight, just so you know, I actually don't care to have advice about this. And I also want to give you the permission and the space that says, don't wait for me to ask you to share with me what's going on in your life. Like, with so many communication placements in my chart and just knowing who I am and who I've always been, I don't have a problem sharing what's on my mind. I don't have a problem. Like if I want to talk about something, you bet your ass I'm going to be talking about it. And I really want to encourage you to step into that place as well that doesn't say like, oh, I want to share this, but I'm going to wait for her to ask me about it. It's like, no, just liberate yourself and step into it because I want to know what's circulating for you too. And I shouldn't have to communicate that all the time, just so you know.
Yeah. And I feel like that you've learned from it too, because I feel like after that, our communication really shifted and you started asking me questions and started, just allowing yourself also to not just talk about your own life, but also like, hey, what has been going on for you? And, learning, I think it also helped you to kind of learn how to prompt other people. I think you're really good at prompting others and really finding like these questions. And I love these little prompts that you give me and that we give each other. And I feel like that, I don't know that you can talk on that, but I feel like that's what I've realized, that you started to question more and just like be more curious about it. And that helped me to realize, okay, I have the space and she does want to hold space for me and I can just let it all out. That's so fun.
Yeah, 1,000%. Because when you let me know, hey, I have this past story and I'm like, okay, cool. I want to make a new story. I want her to know that I'm here and I want to listen to her. So for me, listening to anybody's story is so sacred and I'm so grateful that they share it with me. And what I'm always curious to know are these prompts that come out and it's like, well, why do you feel that way? What led you to think that way? Do you have a past story that ties in with this? How do you associate this? What's the symbolism of this? Just like endless questions that it seems like really helps people kind of come at their situation from a new perspective that says like, oh yeah, never really thought about how it associated with this and this and this. And a lot of times that's how we can kind of help each other get through stuff that's going on or have more resonance with one another and saying like, oh wow, I never thought about it like that. Thank you for sharing that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So prompting each other to learn more about ourselves.
Mm-hmm. And it helps us not take things so personally too. And I think that's been something that's been really special in cultivating this deeper relationship and sisterhood as well, because there are these moments for sure that happen in some of our dialogue and some of our situations that come up where I'm in a space and I think about my lesser conscious self and how my lesser conscious self would deal with something in the moment. And I see a timeline of myself answering it the way my lesser conscious self would have answered it years ago, maybe, or that even a piece of myself kind of wants to answer it. Because I feel like we never fully detach ourselves from, all the different ways that we can be. So there are definitely parts of myself that wants the drama sometimes, that wants the, the stubbornness or whatever. And these are also ways that it's good to check yourself and see the things that trigger you in a relationship, because then you always get that choice that says, okay, well, what kind of day am I trying to have? What kind of way am I trying to approach this right now?
Pick your battles.
Pick your battles. Yeah, exactly.
Yes, so beautiful. All right, so let's touch on like, why would you say is it important to have a sacred sisterhood or a conscious friendship? What are the benefits?
I mean, think about what we're here for as people on the very, very grand scheme of things. Like literally everything that has meaning usually ties back to a relationship of some sort. Even if it's a relationship between you and an inanimate object that like, you know, isn't a person, it's still the relationships that we're forming with other things outside of ourselves. So for me, friendships and really having someone that you trust and that you're able to connect with and that you're kind of feeling like you're on this path with, it's one of the most cherished things that you could possibly have in life. And the benefits that someone has inside of your life that serves this purpose, those are the most sacred and cherished things that we could hope to cultivate. Like if you don't have trust and compatibility and love in a relationship at the end of the day, what is it? And also it's so great to have these kinds of friendships that are outside of a partnership or a companionship because it just offers a different dynamic. It brings like more juiciness to life that we're able to have a very intimate relationship that's not got the specs, but it's got all the other levels of intimacy.
Yeah. And I feel like it actually takes the pressure off from the partnership, from the marriage or from the boyfriend, because it's like we don't expect the partner to fulfill all the different roles, all our different needs that we have. And we actually can seek out different needs with other people, and it's so much, it actually helps us to love our partner on a deeper level because we don't have these expectations. Like if I had these expectations for Alex, for example, I'd be like, I want to just talk to you for 2-3 hours on spiritual expansion a day. And I just like want to unload all these different things that come up for me. He wouldn't be able to hold space for me. Right. And this is the thing, like he has been way better at it. I have to say, we've been like really working on that because that was something that was important for me for our relationship, that he does hold space for me in that sense. And he has learned to hold space just as I have. And then we're still in the process of learning, but he also was at that place where he always wanted to fix it right away and give me advice. And I'm like, I don't want that. I just want you to listen and hold space. And that actually, our friendship actually helped me to realize that because I did the same pattern with you. And then Alex is doing that to me. I realized, oh, this is how it feels like. This is why I don't want that. And this is how it could actually be different, to just allow each other to hold space. And so, yeah, we've been doing the Tantric Sexuality workshop here with Sophia Sundari, the online workshop, and we're going to be having actually an episode on that. But that actually helped us to start holding that space for each other. There are different kind of exercises that you can do. But this is really where this friendship, our sacred sisterhood, helped me with, because it allowed me to see my partner as who he is and really cherish him and honor him, and still have my needs met of that deep communication and the shadows and the sisterhood that I wouldn't gotten from him. And that's okay. And that's perfect, because this is what friendships are for.
Yeah, like wouldn't have gotten in the same way, right?
Because in the same way.
Yeah, there's no way that the two feminine beings can come together in the same way that like an intimate partnership would do. Like you still have those intimate conversations with Alex. It's just on a different level. It's in a different way.
Yeah, and it comes from a different perspective, which also makes it fun, makes it like, oh, let me hear about this perspective, So having these different perspectives in your life and seeing things from different angles is so helpful. And it's actually one of the things I was reading about it, that friendships are actually seen as more important than partnerships. So if someone doesn't have any friends, they're actually more inclined to go into depression, even if they have a partner, than if they are single and have friends.
Yeah, it's almost like that really celebrated idea of being a best friend with your partner first, which is so interesting because for me, naturally, it's like, yeah, that's hopefully what's rooted with most couples. But it seems like when someone says something like that, like we're friends first, it almost seems like this very, very sweet thing that like maybe not everybody really goes into their relationship with an idea of holding that friendship first sacred. But I love how you touched on a lot of other aspects of this dynamic with having a partnership. It reminds me a lot of Esther Perel's work. And I actually wrote those into my marriage vows, into my wedding vows, because I know that I can put so much importance and so much weight onto my partner being the one that brings a lot of the happiness into my life. And that is such a dysfunctional element that will create so much suffering if you really allow yourself to sink into it. And yeah, that was the last line in my vows to him. What did I say? I vow to always take my own happiness in my own hands and not look to you as being the sole provider of my happiness. And before I said it in our wedding ceremony, and by the way, Hanna officiated our wedding, so she was there, she can attest to this. But before saying that, I actually had that sort of conflict almost inside of my heart that I was like, oh my gosh, there was a part of me that felt like it was almost selfish to say something like that. Like, I promise to hold my happiness first. Isn't that funny? Because so many of us enter into a marriage that says like myself, my own happiness is not first priority. Like the first priority is my marriage and the happiness of my partner, which is so dysfunctional.
So it's like similar to the oxygen mask that we take in the airplane. We want to first take the oxygen mask and put it onto our mouth, and then we can actually share it with the other. And this is also something like, how can we attract conscious friendships? It's really about loving ourselves first. This is where it's important, because as long as we're still in that place where we try to have our need for happiness or joy or peace be completely fulfilled by the other person, that's when we start becoming codependent. And that's when we start putting a lot of expectations on them. And that's when we start feeling disappointed if they don't live up to our expectations. And that's when we start actually putting almost like rules and limitations onto their being, so that they can't really shine who they are, but they have to like adjust of what we want them to be. And that is not a conscious relationship or a friendship, because that's actually holding ourselves back to expressing ourselves who we are. So to really attract that conscious friendship, we first have to have that conscious relationship within ourselves.
Isn't it so funny? It always goes back to the self, and it can become one of those things that it's like, yeah, to the self. Okay.
Yeah. But it truly is. And, obviously we don't just want to focus on ourselves in a relationship, because then the relationship is not going to work out either. I really love how when I looked up the origin of the word compromise, and the origin of the word compromise, and I feel like compromise has such a kind of like a negative sense to it, because, I don't want to compromise myself, But the origin of the word compromise comes from common promises. And I really love that way of looking at it, like having common promises and seeing like where's the commonality of what we promise to each other. How can we find that common ground in our relationship? And it has something to do with, yes, I love myself, but I also see the other fully in who they are. And we're coming together just as we have that composite chart, right? It's like the middle it's not, when we are in that friendship, we are ourselves. We still have our individual energy, but we also embody the middle path where we actually meet. Like when we think of like we're on different frequencies, so we like together meet on that sacred frequency that is harmonious for our relationship. And it's this middle path where we allow ourselves to compromise and have these common promises. But that actually can be such a beautiful way of expanding ourselves, because we see things from another perspective when we are with our friend, with our conscious sister.
I love that so much. As soon as you said compromise, I started thinking common, companion, community, that COM origin, COM root. It's so fascinating to see those ties of how language develops and the way that these little origins really look, and the things that they speak to us on a really deep level. That's beautiful. Thank you so much for touching on that.
And so to also, another thing that I want to touch on real quick before we move on to the next question is what we also need for like attracting conscious friendships is like being open to healing and forgiving old friends. And we've talked about that too, you know, looking at the past stories of what has happened to us. And yes, it can feel like we were the victim to this person, and that person really hurt us. And, you know, definitely allowing ourselves to feel the grief of a friendship that has ended and feel the resentment, but then also allow it to move through us and not holding on to it, and forgiving. And when we see this higher perspective, when we zoom out and see the bigger meaning of it, realizing, oh, wow, that was the reason why this friendship ended, or that was the reason why that person triggered me so much or hurt me. I actually became stronger through that, for example, or it actually made me more aware of what I want in a relationship or in a friendship. That's when we start creating these healthy boundaries for ourselves. When we do feel these red flags coming up again, we can make that conscious choice and be like, do I want to enter this sort of relationship or friendship again, knowing or feeling that it has like a similar dynamic to it as the one that didn't work out for me? Or when we do feel that coming up, asking ourselves, is that maybe not the one that I want to engage in, and commit to something more on a sacred level where you say, I want to create something more conscious. And then the third option is to speak on it, for sure. Yeah. Speak on it, communicate about it, because even if you think that it might be the same dynamic, it actually could not be at all. And it's actually just a trigger that triggers something from the past, and it's actually going to help you feel that forgiveness.
Exactly. That's beautiful. And I also want to mention here, because we talk about, you know, releasing and letting go of and letting things dissolve. And on the outside, it can seem like it's something that you kind of make a decision in a very split moment. But I, you know, want to offer to anyone who may be feeling something like this in their own lives to understand that upon the dissolving of a friendship, because maybe there's a lack of resonance, maybe you're feeling yourself expand and your friend is, you know, judging you or demonizing you, or they're just not in the same place that you are. That's supernatural, and it happens. You're on this path and you're going to be moving at a different speed. You're dancing to the beat of your own drum, and it's only natural that it's not going to flow with every single friendship that you've ever made, like unless you have such a special circle. Wow, that would be so beautiful. But it is natural for us to experience this dissonance with other people, and to, you know, the way that we say all the time, to let what's no longer serving fall away. And when you allow things to fall away, you'd be surprised how easeful it is just to, you know, maybe stop making the phone calls, and then you just notice that, you know, the phone calls stop happening on both sides, and it really does fall away with ease when you let it. But also the hurt and the grief that can happen, because it is painful. It can be so painful to let go of a friendship that was maybe long lasting, had deep meaning at some time. And just really allowing yourself and giving yourself space and so much compassion and so much empathy to go through that space and to allow yourself to grieve and not to feel like from one day to the next you have to like, boom, I let that go. It was no longer serving. She's out of my life. He's out of my life. And really giving it the time and the space to let those feelings, to let that grief surface. It can make such a massive difference in healing and really giving yourself that new perspective that says like, okay, this is the vast depth and capacity that I'm able to feel. It's really important, in my perspective, at least, to really feel all of that.
Beautiful. Yes. And also feeling the grief, and also knowing that friendships go through cycles and seasons, and it doesn't mean that every single friendship is going to be long lasting for a lifetime. There are some that are going to last for a lifetime and others are not. And some are literally just meant to trigger you and or like help you on your path through school or through a dark phase in your life or for a certain part of your life. And then they're meant to leave. And then others are meant to leave and then come back. And I mean, I've had that happen before, where I had a friendship that was really, really deep. And then we kind of like split and lived our different lives. And then we came back together and recultivated a deep relationship, because we never, even throughout this part of seemingly distance, maybe even physical distance, moving away from each other, or having the distance of like feeling like we are emotionally distant and we're not feeling so much on the same path anymore. Just knowing that it can come back together and holding that space of unconditional love for each other, and not feeling like, oh, I need to cut these cords for good now and that's it. You know, so
yeah. Beautiful. Exactly.
So let's go into our last questions. How do we maintain, when we attracted this sacred friendship and sacred sisterhood, how do we maintain it?
Wow. I mean, I feel like this is so individual to every friendship, and really being able to assess what's circulating in your own friendship organically is going to give you exactly what you need. For Hanna and I, like, we just took our first little road trip together last year after it was like 4 years of friendship at that point, huh? So just gradually starting to spend more time together. And in the first years, you know, like going to her house and having dinner together, we would like make each other meals and starting to spend more time together on WhatsApp. And it really almost is like developing like a dating relationship, almost like you're spending more time together and getting to know each other. And soon like having little public outings together. Like I came to your priestess workshops about like the goddess, and you know, just having little outings together. And then finally last year we went to the Conscious Life Expo. We were like so excited getting in the car. We were like, oh my God, we're going out of town together. How fun.
And that was my first trip that I've ever taken with just a friend in my partnership. Yeah.
That's so much fun. And I love this too, because I have a sister, and I was, you know, obviously anyone growing up with a sister that you're kind of close to, you know, that you just have this like this ability to kind of connect with women in that sisterly way. And you have a brother, so it was kind of different for you, huh?
Yeah. And it was really cool how your sister came with us to Spirit Weaver last year, and to see your sister relationship with your like physical sister. And it was so fun, because you talk about all these things that I was like, oh my gosh, I never talk about any of this stuff with my brother. Obviously, like I wouldn't talk about my moon blood with my brother, or the way that my butt looks like.
Yeah. And just like her and I walking around naked with each other. And I feel like that's exactly the way, like that best friend that I was talking about, she and I would like live at each other's houses during the summer, and both of us are Cancer rising as well. So we just were attached at the hip, and we would take road trips to San Diego and Los Angeles. And, she would come with me on my family vacations to New Mexico and California. So kind of just growing up with that other wheel in the family was a big part of our practice. But it's been so sweet developing this sisterhood with you too, because I know that you have a brother and I know that you've not had a sister. So it's just been fun to I feel like it was harder for you to warm up to me, but I definitely felt like there were steps in getting closer. Like I couldn't just magnet to you in the same way that I've magneted toward other ladies.
Yeah, and I want to mention here too, because I did have a sister, and I still have her in Germany, and she's been around in my life the whole time, but she wasn't my physical sister, but she was like literally like my sister. We spent, we lived in each other's houses and we went on vacation together with my family. So I just want to mention that too, because I don't want to have her listen to this and be like, wait a second, you say you don't have a sister? Yes, I see you. I love you.
Speak her name.
Berit.
We love you. And
Marta too, my friend from high school. She's also my sister. And those are two that I just know we're gonna have this like lifelong connection no matter what. Like even if we don't have this long, even if we live long distance, they're in Germany and I don't see them many times, but even through that, I just know there are certain people that you just know the connection is going to be there. It's like
absolutely
unconditional love.
My girlfriend is named Jessica. She was my best friend since 10th grade. She lives in San Diego now. And we just actually had her come and stay with us for about 4 days, like 2 weeks ago. She came with her boyfriend, Mateo, and it was just so sweet spending that quality time together. That's another thing about maintaining the conscious friendship is make time for each other. Even if you're busy, if you have children, if you have your partnership, like how can you bring your partners together? Can you do play dates with kids? My niece, Cadence, and Hannah's daughter, Emma, are little BFFs. They love hanging out together. So we love any opportunity that we have to bring them together. And then we're able to, spend time in a different way.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And then another thing to maintain the sisterhood, just as we've been talking about, continue to listen to each other and hold space and be vulnerable and honest. Sharing.
You make mistakes.
Yeah.
Sharing your fears together. Mm-hmm.
Not being too proud to apologize. It's not always easy, but it's so worth it because from that point, it also becomes deeper. It's like, just because we can have these relationships are like on different depths, and some friendships are more like party friends that you hang out with when you have a good time or when you do sports together, you go to events together, and then from that moment when usually I feel like it happens when some sort of trigger comes up. Mm-hmm. And then it depends on, okay, how do you react to that trigger? And do you want to go deeper and talk about it and be vulnerable and hold space and share your fears and be honest? And if you do, it becomes deeper.
Yeah.
Or it falls apart because then you notice like, okay, we're not resonating at all. But then you at least know that that person is not part of your circle anymore. And just being aware that how we say the 5 people that we are connecting with the most are the people that we are naturally becoming. Because if you think about it, we are energetic beings. We have this frequency that we're sending out, this energetic wave, basically. And when we say we're on the same wavelength, that's where that comes from, that saying, because we are all frequency beings. So thinking about, okay, I think on that certain frequency and connecting with other people that have different kind of frequencies, what is the sum of their frequency? And is that ultimately pulling me upwards and helping me grow? Or is that actually dragging me down and making me feel like it's actually kind of like holding me back from being my best self?
Right. Like when you leave their presence, do you have a more uplifted feeling, or do you feel more heavy and dense and kind of like you need a cleanse? Do you feel drained? These are really good little practices that you can have just on a really subtle level when you're hanging out with people, if you feel like you haven't really cultivated that awareness yet, because it will be very transparent as soon as you start paying attention.
Yes. And when you start talking about it and open dialogue on it, and you see their reaction to it, then you can also know, okay, are they really friends that are committed to the friendship? Because I feel like that's also what's important to maintain a friendship. Both of them need to be committed to the friendship. It can be just, it's not just on us, on one person to be like, all right, I gotta be listening and holding space and sharing and calling and whatever. But it also has to come from the other person, obviously. And the other person has to meet us in the middle. And if they don't meet us in the middle, at least at some point we have to know, okay, when is the time to stop reaching out? When is the time, just becoming aware of how many times do I reach out to that person and how many times is that person actually reaching out to me? And allowing that to like naturally flow and surrender to that evolution and to the natural purpose of the friendship.
Mm-hmm. And it can be a hard pill to swallow, a hard truth to sit with sometimes, but it's a part of the process too. That's beautiful.
And also, as the last point I just want to mention too is love, show affection. I feel like that's so important in friendship, to just let each other know how much you care about them and how much you love them and appreciate them. I know that we're sending each other these voicemails of like such cute little motivational speeches for each other. Like I just want to save them and be like, okay, whenever I feel down, I'm just going to listen to this message, because this is just so beautiful. Like, allowing ourselves to say, I love you to a friend, even when we don't have this intimate sexual relationship with them, because I feel like there's a part that is going on in the collective that it's like, oh, you can only say I love you to your partner or to a family member, but to like anyone outside of that, you can't. But just allowing yourself to express your love, because love can come in so many different aspects and levels and ways.
Yeah, beautiful. Thank you so much for chipping that in. Love you. So before we ask each other the sacred questions and wrap it up here, will you let the audience know what is circulating for you in terms of offerings and services?
Yes. So I have, oh my gosh, I'm so excited because my website just recently launched and it has so much new things that are coming, and I've prepared for months to be of service to you and to help you with like different offerings. So one of the things that I offer now are these archetype playbooks that I already mentioned. So you can download them on my website. And then a webinar. So I'm going to have a live webinar on April 2nd, and you can also sign up for it on my website, and it's going to be about unleashing your full manifestation power, attracting peace and love into your life, and upgrading your consciousness. So we're going to talk about like almost like a games strategy plan, like different steps that you can follow to like really allow yourselves to tune deeper and deepen your awareness and heighten your consciousness. So super excited for that. And then also I have my one-on-one coaching obviously going on. So if you're looking for that life beyond the veil coaching, allowing yourself to tune deeper within your inner wisdom and shining the light as the star that you are born to be, embracing your powers and truly leaving that impact in the world that you wish to see. That's what I really, really enjoy, helping people through that transformation and allowing them to shine fully and connect to source and connect to their higher selves and really tune into the universal timing of it all. So if you're really feeling called to reveal that magic within yourself, you can book a revelation call with me. It's for free, and you can book it on the website, and it's really for people that are ready to step into a new life and allow themselves to see life from a higher perspective and commit to a transformation, to a new way of living, upgraded way of living. Ta-da! And then I also have a new Facebook group. So my group is called Life Beyond the Veil. And this is where I'm sharing all the fun experiences and stories. And this is for everybody to share your stories, your paranormal, psychic, supernatural, synchronicities, anything from the spiritual realm, where we can have that space to share about it and normalize the magic and really allow yourself to connect deeper with that life beyond the veil.
Beautiful.
Thank you. That's it from me. So what about you, Britt?
Yeah, so I've been very excited. The beginning of the year, I really committed to this concept that I wanted to start putting out this weekly wake up newsletter, just these weekly insights to spark joy and curiosity, trigger and transformation. So a lot of times I'll talk about something that's really been on my mind, on my heart, some internal landscape that I've been going through. And then for these journal prompts, I love offering these journal prompts to self-reflect more easily. So I'll go between different chakras, different moon phases. And just recently, this last week was International Women's Day. So we really cultivated some space to honor the women that are present for us in our lives and just reflecting on a lot of that feminine empowerment. But if you are seeking that sort of high vibrational sister to pop up into your inbox, you can sign up for the weekly wake up on my website. And I also offer personal transformation coaching. So those are one-on-one as well. And I offer clarity calls for those. You can go onto my website to schedule those clarity calls. And what I'm finding with the personal transformation clients that come to me are these people that maybe don't have the friends and family to talk to about the inner transformations that are happening. And I find myself being that bridge to the spiritual realm that I then dive into a lot of different self-knowledge systems with them over time. So we take a look at human design and astrology and take a look at their unique chakra system and learning how to map that so that we can see the natural imbalances that are coming up and start implement different practices and different ways to kind of approach those imbalances. So it's been really, really sweet work. For me, there's no greater honor than being invited into somebody's life and really intaking their personal stories and starting to teach them how to come to know themselves more fully. It's such a gift. It's so much fun. So personal transformation coaching, you can go to, there's a place to schedule those clarity calls on my website, brittlinyoga.com. And I also am a self-healing song channeler. So I'm calling them aura baths. I've just started uploading to SoundCloud. And this aura bath is a soundscape that is completely made by me, these vocal harmonies on this equipment that I have that sort of just, it seems like it's just an audio message that has an entity of itself inside, and it really induces these certain feelings. So more so than a guided meditation or just a binaural audio, it's something in the middle of those two things that are very relaxing to listen to and also can help grounding into that self-reflection of like, who am I and what am I here for? Mm-hmm. And then I also have my first online course series coming out. I'm calling it the Sacred Self Series. And once again, I'm sort of extending a welcoming, loving hand to anyone who is feeling like a shift is coming, but they don't really know how to take next steps. And this first curation of the Sacred Self Series is creating a sacred space and learning how to just cultivate that sacred space and consecrate it, sacralize it, and creating an altar space in the house or in your yard, wherever it is that you feel most serene and grounded. So those are the things going on with me.
So beautiful. It is just so fun to see each other shine. And even just this past season, I mean, just since we started the podcast, literally both of our transformations have been just like skyrocketing, and it's just so wonderful to witness each other in this sacred sisterhood.
Yeah, I feel the same way. Like, honestly, when we decided that we were going to have guests onto the podcast, there was a part of me inside that like felt those edges and felt that sort of kind of just scared, a little bit anxious, a little bit excited, that sacred tingle. And, you know, I knew that it was going to provide us this opportunity to show up as ourselves more fully by opening these deeper dialogues with the guests that were coming onto our show, because you know, we weren't as used to opening up on these kinds of spiritual concepts and practices in a public format. So it's really allowed us that space to open dialogue to the more subtle, magical realms of life.
Yes, beautiful. And here we are coming back full circle to the anniversary of Sacred Sister Podcast.
Exactly.
Thank you.
Let's ask those sacred questions to each other.
Yes.
What does sacred mean to you?
Sacred means to me when we are tuning into this presence, this inner feeling of connectedness and oneness. And it is within us and surrounding us at all times, in any present moment. And it can be literally any action that we do or any object, any relationship we can make sacred by tuning into that stillness and into that presence of it and really being there fully. Yeah.
Beautiful.
What about you? What does sacred mean to you?
Man, sacred is so personal. It's so unique. It looks so different to everyone. And for me, it's almost this unspoken feeling that arises from within, like those deepest parts of myself whenever I'm tapping in and connecting to not only my spirit, but the spirit of all that is. It's this really divine, like palpable feeling. For me, a lot of it draws back to self-study. And whenever I'm making these really insanely loud epiphanies about myself or about a piece of my path, or, you know, finding something new in my human design chart or my astrology chart, like seeing myself in a way that I've never really quite seen, but I've always felt on a really deep level. It's just, there's like nothing like it. It's just it's the feeling of tying the two, like the spirit realm and the physical world together. That feeling of like, yes, this is real. That's so sacred to me.
Mm-hmm.
Like you're on a path, you're on a journey. What are you here doing?
Mm-hmm.
So thank you so much for everyone tuning in to this from whatever corner of the globe that you are tuning in from. It is so special and so sacred to be spending this time with you here today. And we just really want to honor you. We want to acknowledge you, and we want to thank you for tuning into this podcast for however long that you have. And, you know, here's to many more years, many more episodes of Deep Dialogue.
Yes, thank you so much. And we hope that you really allow yourself to attract these beautiful soul tribe sacred friendships into your life as well. And if you already have them, congratulations. And we wish you all the best on your journey.
Yes. Thank you so much. Have a beautiful rest of your day, beloved.
Thank you. Namaste.
Namaste.